Hey, you, it's Allison. I'm a death doula, grief educator, and coach, as well as an end of life services planner and guide. I'm going to take you on my little walk with me. Never mind that I sound like a death warmed over, which is kind of a funny phrase given the work that I do. I have been grappling with this idea because at first I really believed in it. And it's this idea of dying a good death. Now, the reason why I'm grappling with this just a little bit is I find that the conversations around having a good death is very similar to our culture that is hyper active in the hustle culture, in exceptionalism, and being perfect. Now, that's not to say that someone can't have a good death, because there definitely is. But I think there's a misconception or misperception of what that actually means. And so instead of saying, helping someone die a good death, what if we reframed it and just said death with dignity? Because sometimes a person's death journey isn't great. It's not good. And there is a lot of pressure on the person and on the person's community and caregiving community that they were doing something wrong when they aren't having this, quote, good death. And again, I know that the intention behind the phrase having a good death, there's like good meaning behind it. But as the phrase goes, intention doesn't equal impact. And I see over and over caregivers, particularly women who have been in the corporate world, or they're high performing people that are now in the midst of caregiving. As you know, 85% of working women are caregivers, both for their kiddos and usually for their elderly parents or some loved one that is going through an illness. And as a recovering, high performing, high achieving, high responsibility woman, I can really relate to this because when my dad was on his dying journey, and there were so many barriers to having a good death. It was his mental health issues. It was his physical issues. It was the constraints of resources and accessibility, both for him and for myself. And I have a lot of privilege. And so there were things that are available to me that aren't available to the majority of the people that are out there. So while I think the intention behind having a good death was intended to bring peace, I think it's done the opposite. And so I want to really start exploring what it means to have dignity in death. Now, this does not take into account traumatic deaths like death by suicide or other forms of death that are traumatic. This is more along the journey of a terminal illness, whether very short term or long term. This is what this is surrounding. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the phrase dying a good death versus dying a death with dignity?